I was concerned about him because he wouldn't quit doing it. And so I turned and I said, "Are you okay, honey?" And he said, "No, it's scary." And I said, "Well, what's scary?" And he said, "Someone's pulling your skirt." She went into room 217 and there had been a leak that no one had known about. And when she lit the gas lamp, boom!
He literally came running downstairs, swearing he was never going to stay in that room again.
Welcome to the 108 Effect. This podcast was created as a space to pause, to breathe, and to explore the questions that we don't always have time or permission to ask. Across cultures and traditions, the number 108 represents completion, connection, and alignment. It reminds us that there is a rhythm to life, something both practical and mysterious, that links who we are with something greater. Here, we gather to talk openly about consciousness, intuition, life, death, and the moments that quietly change us. Through honest conversation and shared experience, we explore what it means to trust ourselves, to listen inward, and to live with greater awareness. If you've ever felt a pull towards something deeper, or wondered if there's more to this human experience than what we see on the surface, you're in the right place. So take a deep breath, settle in, and join us as we begin this journey together. This is the 108 Effect.
Welcome to the 108 Effect, and we're back with a part 2. So please join us, and here is the conclusion to our conversation.
But wait, we have to do our, what weird thing happened to you this week. So who wants to go?
Laura.
I've never read anybody per se. I have hinted at maybe I know something or whatever, and I know we've done it practicing our intuition and whatnot. And sometimes I was like 100%, and sometimes I was like 90%, but I've never been absolutely 100% confident in my abilities. And Casey and I just went on a cruise down to the Caribbean, and we were getting off on the island of Antigua, and we were getting ready to take a sailing excursion around the island. And there was this woman about 4 or 5 people in front of me, and she was stunningly beautiful. She was a very large woman, but there was just something about her energy, and I couldn't help but kind of just stare at her a little bit. And that's when I noticed her aura. And this isn't something I see all the time. And I just saw this amazing kind of blue. It had some green in it, yellow, and white aura, just kind of almost floating on her head. And I'm like, oh, and I was automatically drawn to her. And we all get on the boat, and I'm telling my husband, it's like, oh my God, I got to talk to her. I don't know what I'm supposed to say, but I'm like being pushed. And I noticed at this time that my stomach was really hurting. And I don't know if it was the angst of this need. And I was so being pushed to talk to this woman. And one of the things that happens when I've been practicing the reading or even remote healing, I regurgitate this information and I have no idea where it comes from. It just comes out, and it's almost like I don't even know what I'm getting ready to say. It just starts coming out. So we're on the boat, and I said, I'll wait till we get to a beach or something, and then I'll talk to her. But my stomach was just hurting so bad. It was like this knot in my, my gut. I said to Casey, I said, I need to go talk to her right now. So I walked up to her and I said, can I just sit here for a minute? And she said, sure. And I said, no, don't freak out. I said, but I'm somebody that can read energy and sometimes even see auras. And I want to start off by telling you that your aura was amazing. And I don't normally see them. So when I saw it, I was immediately drawn to you. So the colors in your aura, they kind of started off blue, and then went to a yellow, and then a green, and then a white. And so I want to tell you that I don't know what I'm supposed to tell you, but I'm going to tell you what the colors mean as far as your chakras. So your heart chakra, which is green, was one of the colors I saw in there. And that means you're a nurturing sort, that you're somebody that probably takes care of other people before you take care of yourself. And at this point, she was like, yeah, that's me. She didn't say it out loud, but she was nodding. And then I was telling her about the blue, which is the throat chakra. And I said, there's a lot to say about that chakra in that you want things to be perfect in your life. You want things lined up a certain way. You get frustrated. I said it could be the way you put your makeup on or get dressed in the morning or your living space. It has to be just so. Again, she is nodding again. So I go on to tell her a little bit more, and the whole time my stomach is still really tightened up. I thought I was getting ready to throw up. And this is the part where stuff just spills out, and I don't even know what's going to be said. And it just came. I said, I'm getting something about your mother. I don't know if your mother's alive, if she's here with us. She said she's alive. I said, I'm getting this intense feeling that she needs you right now, or you need her. I don't know if this is something about conflicts between you two or whatnot. I don't feel like it's medical. I just feel like you really need each other, like now, like today. And she kind of nodded her head a little bit. I went on to say some other things that are not significant to the story at all, but enough for her that she kept nodding her head. And then I said, I don't have to be right. I don't need validation, but I do want you to know is take what I've told you and do what you want with it. Do what you need to do with it. So anything that I'm telling you that isn't resonating doesn't mean it's not true. I could be wrong, absolutely. But it also could mean that something in the future is getting ready to change, or it's something that you haven't thought about in this moment. I don't need the validation. I just needed to tell you, and you can do with that information what you want. But I do know that my stomach is not hurting as much, so it's telling me that I've told you everything I need to tell you. And she looked at me and she said, you have been spot on. Everything you've told me is spot on. So, like, I didn't need the validation, but I'm glad she did because it was like, all of us have done this sort of thing, and the worst thing in the world is being wrong.
Right.
It's like, you don't want to, you get happy when you have 2 or 3 right, but when you're 100% right, it's like, yeah. But if you get 1 wrong, you're like, I suck, And so the great thing about this was not so much that I did it, but that I had the courage to do it and how I felt as I was doing it, because I was clearly getting that energy pulled to do this thing, to give this person what she needed. And I noticed when I went back and sat with Casey, I was like, oh my God. And I was like, felt like I was going to throw up, I was like, oh my God. But I was so relieved that I did it because I started to feel better. The needing to throw up was just embarrassment or like, oh my God, what if I'm wrong? And I looked over at her later and she had become pretty pensive. She was kind of, as the boat was sailing off, she was kind of just looking out over the water and just kind of lost in thought. And I said to Casey, I said, oh my God, I've ruined her day. But then I noticed her kind of come back to life. And I mean, there was dancing and rum drinking and all that other stuff. And she seemed to relax a little bit. And I just thought of something that was pretty interesting to this group. We were on the beach later. We stopped at this beach and I got out to collect some shells. And she was sitting in the water with the girl that she was with. And they were just talking to another couple that were on the boat. And I heard her say she was from New Jersey.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And I was like, wait, what? But I didn't want to interrupt them or whatever. I was like, I know people there,
I'm going there myself.
Yeah. But the great thing about the experience is that I left it with a little bit more confidence and a little bit more knowledge of how things work for me and not worrying about what to do the next time I get pulled that hard.
Yeah.
It was tough to ignore. It's like very tough to ignore.
That's an incredible story. That was wonderful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that and thank you for doing that for that lady. I mean,
yeah. Well, and I may never know. I'll never know to what extent, if I helped. The validation for me is that when that happens again, to truly trust it more.
Oh.
And
Mhm.
hopefully I'll become more confident in it.
That
So,
is a great
yeah,
story and a
that was
great message for everybody
mhm,
to, like, trust in yourself,
yeah.
and that confidence will grow. That's amazing.
So, yeah, a lot of weird things happen at the Stanley. I don't know anybody that's been there that hasn't had something happen, but I do know somebody that had spent over a decade there, and she was best known as Scary Mary, and she was an ambassador for the Stanley and did 60 and 90-minute tours for years. Her name is Mary Orton, but she got the nickname Scary Mary by all the people that just love to be in her audience for the tours. Well, hi, Mary. Welcome to the 108 Effect. We are so excited that you are here. So let's start with me asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, ladies, for allowing me to come on tonight. I've been looking forward to this. When Laura contacted me, I was like, oh, yeah, hell yeah. Um, Born and raised Cheyenne, Wyoming. This is going to be important. Raised Catholic. Was taught certain things, you do or do not believe in this or that during your lifetime. And so for that reason, I was the weirdo in the family for sure. I was the one that would take my nieces and nephews and do seances in our basement. And I always felt somehow fascinated, but not in a bad way with death, just kind of like really enchanted by the idea of the beyond or the something beyond this. Long story short, I grow up, I have kids, I get married 2 or 3 times. I moved to, Longmont, Colorado. Family history is that my grandmother lived close to Estes Park in a town called Allens Park, Colorado. So for every summer, I would go visit her from Cheyenne. And I always tell my family, and I'll never forget this, that we would be driving into Estes Park to get groceries, and she would look at the Stanley when it was all boarded up and, kind of dilapidated, and she'd say, it's too bad about the Stanley. They were such nice people. Well, come to figure out, because her father was the mayor of Boise, Idaho, and they had a very kind of a upstanding family. It's possible that she and her twin sister summered at the Stanley. We can't prove it, but it's possible. So hearing about that from my grandmother and seeing this old hotel up on the hill, now this was in I'm aging myself, late 60s and 70s. I always was intrigued by the hotel itself. Like I said earlier, I grow up, I get married, I moved to Longmont, Colorado, and we thought, well, let's go up to Estes for the day. This is now 2008, and we walk in. There was a concierge named Billy Ward. Billy said, well, would you like me to walk you around a little bit? And I said, sure, that's great. There was no tour department. Billy walks me around the hotel a little bit. And before we left, I said, I'm needing a job and I don't live that far. This might be fun to work here. So I filled in an application, got hired, got trained at front desk, which Laura's very familiar with. And I don't know about you ladies, but there I was at the front desk. And I think it was about 2 weeks later, I was approached by not only Billy, who was the concierge, but Mr. Colin, the owner of the Stanley. Said, how would you like to start a tour department? And I said, oh, well, that sounds fun. And I love history anyway, right? He took me down to the basement level of the Stanley, and there was an old room where they did the reservations on the phone. And he said, this will probably be the office, but for now, we're going to make do. I did a little research. I read some books about the history of the Stanley family and, Estes in the olden days, and literally sat at a desk with a spiral notebook and a cash box. And that's how the tour department started. And I charged $7 and would say to someone, hey, you want to walk around with me for a while? And that was in 2008. And in 2018, I finally retired, which I regret to this day, by the way, because I had had double hip surgery and I just couldn't physically do it anymore with my back pain and walking 90 minutes,
Mhm.
4 or 5 times a day. Having said that, Mr. Cohen was very good to me during my term there. He was very sweet. And I had another medical issue. I had a small stroke. He kept my insurance going for me. He was a very sweet man to me. So I appreciate what he did. But I did leave, and now I still come back once in a while. And I live in Fort Collins, Colorado now. And whenever I go back, I understand I'm still being requested for tours and they're still talking about Scary and her ghosts and things like that, which is really good for my soul. It makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but basically that's it, kind of in a nutshell. That's how I got to the Stanley.
How did your tour grow? Basically, I'm sure it started small, but like, did it grow pretty big right away, or
It
did you have to
Not
do
not
something?
really. I worked at it, especially because back then it was only doing history. It wasn't doing anything about spirits or ghosts or energies or anything like that. And so we would just walk around for 30, 45 minutes. I'd say goodbye to them at the front door. And then slowly but surely as summer hit, more people would walk by and more people, and they'd be like, oh, I might need some help. So we started renovating the old reservation room, knocking down walls, making it into a real tour office. And then to begin with, I had a really nice lady named Dawn with me, and then Billy helped me. And then I think we hired 2 or 3 different guides. I mean, this is way back in 2008 now, 2008, 2009. So it started small, but then it's like the snowball effect happened, and word got out, and more people came, and more people came. That was the birth of the tour office at the Stanley.
You said it just was more history at the beginning. How long did it take to become that people were coming to maybe experience something
Well, they
paranormal?
would mention it to me. They'd say, I've heard about this place because, The Shining. And so everybody knows The Shining. And if you're into the paranormal, you're going to be attracted to the Stanley just because of the fact that there might be residual energy there, or, and you have the knowledge of that. So people started asking. And John would hear that, and he's a good businessman. And he'd be like, okay, well, let's add in a few ghost stories here and there. And so at one point, there was the Scary Mary ghost stories. And people would go into one of the ballrooms, and I'd set it up in the dark with a little lantern I carried. And, what room are you staying in? Oh, I'm staying in 214. Really? And
That's
did you
great.
know something about the room? Well, I don't know if I knew something about the room, but, it was entertainment. So really, it just kind of took off from having fun with people, I'm going to say, and just being a weirdo, wanting to go out there and have fun and talk ghosts and learn. And at this point, I had no experience in my life at all. That came later on.
Yeah,
So,
can you tell us a little bit about that? What's your first experience at the Stanley?
So my, I think Laura knows this one, don't you, Laura? And when you go into the Stanley, there's a big, beautiful grand staircase, and there's a landing. And the tourists typically would stop there because there's a bench where people can sit and rest. And there's pictures of former owners of the Stanley. And so I was just talking about this owner and that owner and that owner. And there was a little boy on the tour. He was sitting with his mom, and he kept saying, Mommy, that's scary. That's scary. I was concerned about him because he wouldn't quit doing it. And so I turned and I said, are you okay, honey? And he said, no, it's scary. And I said, well, what's scary? And he said, someone's pulling your skirt. And I was like, inside of me going, yeah, right, And so what happens when someone says that is the other 20 people on the tour stand up and come around you all of a sudden. And I was like, okay, chill. And so I said, I don't feel anything, honey, but if it's true and I'm not doubting you, why don't we all play a game with this? And so somebody said, pull it in the front. And it yanked. I could see it that time. It yanked down. Pull it on the left, yank down. Pull it on the right. And this kept going. I was like, we're going to run late on the tour, ladies and gentlemen. And for sure. And by that time, I wasn't scared, but I was kind of like, yeah, that is weird. I can feel that tugging.
Wow.
And so the owner, John, happened to be walking by. And he said, find me after the tour. So I went and I found him and he said, come with me. And he took me to HR and he said, change her name. She's now Scary Mary.
Oh,
wow.
what
the
the
day it
little
was
boy said.
coined.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now I can't
Great.
escape it. No. Now I'm
It
just
still
pet
is.
sitter, but I'm not
Yeah.
scary. Yeah.
That's
So that was my
awesome.
first kind of experience of something happening around me. Yeah. Would be
Wow.
that. Yeah,
Did you
pretty-
ever have a person on the tour get so scared that they left?
Yes. And it was hilarious.
What happened?
Many times. I was telling Laura I've had 3 Bibles sent to me at the Stanley. A friend of mine, Becca, was a tour guide under me. She was working with me at the Stanley. And on one of her tours one night, a little boy had he had a Tootsie Roll with him. And so he took it out of his pocket and he said, do you think they would move this in my hand? And so he places the Tootsie Roll in his hand and it moved, a little bit. But everybody's like, well, he moved it. Who knows? It could be psychosomatic, things like that. Later and later and later, I instigated this Dum Dum, where we used Dum Dum lollipops, and I would give them out before every night tour. And I'd say, you can't eat it, after the tour, but what you can do is make sure somebody with you or somehow it is stabilized. You are not moving your hand. So they would all do that. And I don't know what year this was. I don't really remember, but we were up in the concert hall in the balcony. And I always had it in the dark. I never turned on the lights on my tours. Yeah. And so, and it's winter and
Scary.
it's cold.
Yeah.
So this lady is sitting at the end of the row of chairs, and I'm kind of sitting down the ledge of the balcony, and I'm talking about, we've had this energy named Paul, this energy named Lucy, this energy named this and that. And they all had their machines out. And I said, okay, let's ask the kids. I call them my kids, but they're no one's kids. They're spirit kids. His name is Matthew. I call him my little scallywag because I believe I was told by our resident psychic, Madam Vera, who I know is legit because he scares me a lot, that he is a little Irish boy. And he was attracted to me because I have an adult son with autism and he was on the spectrum. So Matthew, and I'd say, Matthew, come on to play with us, you little scamp. Come on out and play with us. And he or whomever made a lollipop move in her hand, like this. And she threw stood up, ran out of the concert hall,
My
all the way into the icy dark night. And I had
Wow.
to follow her because of liability insurance and making sure she's okay. And when I finally caught up to her, I said, it's okay. Are you all right? And she said, you're a demon.
Oh,
God.
I'm not going back in there. And I said, well, you have to at least wait inside the building until we leave because I need to make sure you're safe when you walk back to the main building. Okay, but I don't know. So that was kind of fun. She was really scary. That was good.
Sounds like it.
yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was
God.
that one.
So on the
Yeah.
other spectrum of it, was there anything that ever happened to you that made you go, oh, I don't know if I could finish out my shift?
I was thinking about that today because I knew you were going to ask me this question. I thought, just the way my brain works, I'm not really afraid. I'm more fascinated with everything. And of course, I've had those moments where I'm like, oh my God. But then I start giggling and I'm just like, bring it on. But then when it does, I'm the first one to run out,
You don't know it yet, but you're one of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Well, there was one time, and I don't think Laura knows the story yet. One of my very dearest friends in the whole world can channel energy. She really can. She's legit. We were talking about past life regression. And she said, I'm getting that you were Irish. And I'm like, I still am. And she said that I lived in Ireland. I was always in love with this sailor, and I would wait for the sailor to come back, okay? And she said, your name was Lorelai or Lorelai or something. And I was like, okay. And so time to time, we'd talk about it, and I'd go, where am I today? Am I in Ireland? Again, concert hall. People are going through, and Laura's been on my tour, so she knows that I'm always staring at the door, and I'm like, thank you for choosing United Spirit Airways. And And then I'm like counting the people, 1, 2, because I don't want anyone to get lost. It's the part of the tour where we go from the main dance floor down to the lower level. We all get down to the lower level, and I'm talking about this cool mirror that had energy appear in it. And then all of a sudden I look and I'm like, I don't see 20 people. So I go back upstairs and there's a lady standing on the dance floor of the concert hall. And she's just visibly like shaking. And I said, come on, we got to go down. What is it? And she goes, don't you see her? And I'm like, see who? And she said her name is Lorelai. Lorelai.
Oh,
Now, how
wow.
weird is that?
wow.
Ooh, I got
That
chills.
is
And
a-
I did
I'm
too.
Me
getting
too.
goosebumps right now.
Yeah.
So that freaked me out big time because how could that be? I'm not
Right.
that smart to think I was there, but I wasn't there, two of
Yeah.
me. So
Wow.
that was really interesting. And
For
I called
sure.
my friend after work and I said, "Rah, rah, rah," and she said, well, why are you doubting energy? That very same friend of mine, we're on the computer and I kept texting her. I have hundreds of photos from tours that people have taken during the tour.
Mm-hmm.
And when they react, I stop them and I'm like, give it to me right away because I don't want them to Photoshop it or alter it or anything. And so I was sharing a picture with her. And she and I, you guys, I swear to God, I don't know if it's happened to you. But again, it was that little Matthew boy. What I was trying to do was I was standing by the vortex of just by room 217. And I was trying to get him to kind of do a jig, because I wanted everybody to participate and have fun. So I was like, turn around, turn around. And she and I together on the computer saw like a slow like this
Oh,
of him. I'm like,
wow.
how can this be happening? This
Wow.
isn't
Wow.
logical.
That's
It's just,
amazing.
yeah. And so later, and I was telling Laura the other day about this, how the person that took that picture submitted it for a photography contest for the Smithsonian magazine and won a prize.
Oh,
So it was featured
Oh,
in the
cool.
Smithsonian.
That's
I said, yeah, that's
amazing.
me,
That's
me and my
cool.
Matthew.
That's
That's
cool.
fantastic. Love that.
I deserved a raise at that
Yeah,
point,
you
don't you
did.
think?
Yes, you did.
Agreed.
Mhm. That's awesome.
Yeah,
So
so
I
that's
heard
2 things.
there was a story where people would take some of the rocks down in the, I guess, the boiler room.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
in
did you
the
ever have
tunnel
anything?
system.
Yes, in the tunnel
Yes, in
system,
the
they would take
tunnels.
the rocks. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You shouldn't do that.
Right.
And I know that recently, matter of fact, the new tour manager showed me where they had a letter and someone sent the rock back, the actual rock they took, and said, ever since we took this, things have been happening in our home. Please do whatever you need to
Cool.
do.
Oh,
We've tried sage, we've tried everything. And I'm like, it just makes sense because it's the energy stored in the rock, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the physical energy of the granite and the pyrite or whatever it is. And so it doesn't want to be moved. And if you think about the topography of Estes Park and where the Stanley sits, it's on a floating foundation, so it's constantly moving. So little tiny rocks are constantly falling down. Well, that was Native American area.
Oh, yeah.
So really, we don't have any right to take what was there on Mother Earth, in my opinion. I will admit to one thing publicly here. I hope the police don't show up. But if they do, it's worth it. So I know Laura's been to Stanley a number of times. Have you been
Yeah.
to the Stanley, ladies?
Oh,
In
yes.
fact,
Quite a
all
few
of us.
times.
I've
Three or
been there
four times.
Okay,
once.
good. Okay.
Yeah, in
So you know
fact,
the tunnel system
Yes.
and the sidewalk
Yep.
and the tunnel
Mhm.
system.
I
Yes.
did
So
want
I
to
was
point.
walking in from the I'm sorry, Laura.
No, that's okay. I wanted to point out that Julie, we've all been there a number of times. But Julie's been there one time, and her very first paranormal experience was at the Stanley.
Oh, you're
Stanley.
the one.
Yeah, and so
Yeah, I'm the
not
one.
just one, but she had 2 things happen there, and one was she was physically kind of not pushed violently, but pressed upon and pushed forward. But go
You
ahead,
okay,
go ahead
Julie?
and admit to what you stole there, Mary.
I'm coming into work
Okay.
Monday.
Yes.
I'm coming into work. Every time I walked in the Stanley, I said to the Stanleys, Freeland and Flora, thank you for letting me work here. Let's go have a great day. And I walk a little further, and there's some engineers of the Stanley, and I see there's a bunch of like rubble on the sidewalk area. And I said, what's this? And they said, we found things from the explosion way in
Oh.
the back. So now I am in possession of a piece of wall from room 217 the day of the explosion. And it has horsehair binding, and it has the wallpaper that Flora chose on it.
Why don't you tell a lot of the viewers may not know that story. Can you tell us that story?
I don't know that story.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. Forgive me because I haven't been at work for a long time, but I don't remember precisely the year. But the Stanley used a gas system, okay, in each room. One night or one evening, the system failed because there had been a bad thunderstorm in the area. The weather wasn't good. So everything's failing at the hotel. So Mr. Stanley asked, housekeeping department, there's a lady named Mrs. Wilson. Go to the rooms you're assigned to normally, and hers will happen to be 217, and light the gas lamp. See, get the system's back up now, light the gas lamp. So she went into room 217, and there had been a leak that no one had known about. And when she lit the gas lamp, boom! So basically, if you're familiar with the ballroom called the McGregor Room, it's a big ballroom. There's windows that were there because the original ballroom was not that big. It was much smaller, and they added on after the explosion. This poor woman had no injuries. She did have a broken ankle, and she was projected through the floor and fell into the McGregor Room with piles of lumber and every wall coming down around her. The room itself and the building itself, some of it was found on Prospect Mountain, which is about a mile and a half away. That's how intense the explosion was.
Oh, wow.
So on my tours, I used to have somebody act like Mrs. Wilson, and they would lay on the floor and scream and writhe in pain. They'd go, "Ah!"
I want that job.
Right?
No kidding.
Yeah, but then I'd say, I feel like I'm being gaslit, or, it's really hot in here or something. But I'm just weird. That wall that they found, it had fallen through over the years. And so it was behind the rocks in the tunnel. There's like a computer room or an electrician's room. It was behind there. And so it's like, oh, Miss Flora would want me to have this.
Of course.
Of course
I
she
have
would,
heard that
yes.
story, but I didn't realize that there was debris found a mile and a half away. I guess I forgot that part.
Yeah, it was very intense.
That is
very
intense. She's lucky she
Yeah.
came away from that.
And who knows how long the leak had been going on in the room, too. I mean, I'm imagining it was more in a winter time. I'd have to get back in touch with you guys and tell you because my mind's not the same anymore. But
Casey
Yeah.
updated our chat and said the explosion occurred on June 25th of 1911.
1911, thank you.
Oh, okay.
You're hired.
Yeah, right.
Can you get me back there? I really want to go back.
I have a question, Mary. So
Yes.
years ago, I don't know if this is rumor. I've heard it a couple of times. Sometimes you can find it online. They filmed Dumb and Dumber there at the Stanley. And for the listeners, if you've ever seen the movie Dumb and Dumber, there's a scene where they're at a ski lodge. The inside of the Stanley was used for the inside the lodge. And there's a story that Jim Carrey, who is one of the actors, had wanted to stay in room 217, having heard all the haunting stories and everything, and he requested to stay in there. You probably know the story. Is it true? And if it is, what happened?
Yes, it's true, and I can't talk about it.
Oh, you're still under a...
Well, I will tell you what I
Go ahead.
heard. I heard that
Okay.
he had went to take a nap, and at some point, I don't know how long after his nap, he literally came running downstairs, swearing he was never going to stay in that room again. One reiteration says that he swore he'd never walk back into the Stanley again. And that's all of that you can find online. But it's also said that he has never spoken about it.
Yeah.
Has anything ever followed you home?
Well, ask my husband.
Bill?
I wish I could get him in here. Not that I was aware of.
Okay.
But he had paranormal experiences at home while I was at work of people dressed up like the Stanleys would dress back in the early 1900s or so. And I would come home and he'd say, quit bringing them with you.
That's great.
And this is a
Oh,
logical
fun.
man who didn't
Mhm.
believe anything. He was taking a nap one day on the couch and he said he was woken up by a lady tapping on him. It's like, and she was like, you need to wake up now. And he said, okay. And then he realized who it was or who it wasn't.
Right?
And we have identical twin
funny.
daughters. And one of them, Amanda, was living with us at the time, working up in Estes. And our house was one of those 70s houses where it's like the living room and then you step up to the dining room, like the little
Mhm.
sunken area.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, again, he was just watching TV and he had ordered pizza for her. He turns and he didn't hear her come in or anything. He turns and he says he saw her sitting on that step, just kind of looking at a book. And he went, Amanda? And then he turned again and she was just gone.
Oh.
And so
Oh.
he
Wow.
thought, well, that's rude. She went downstairs, didn't say hello, or ordered her pizza. So he yells over the railing, Amanda, get up here. There's pizza. No response. And so he finally looked out the window and her car wasn't there. There was nobody there but Bill.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh,
So
I like
I don't
that.
know if I brought them with me, if that's a false accusation on his part, but since I started working at the Stanley, he has had paranormal experiences. I've only had like 2, but they were in that house. They were in that house
Uh-huh.
in Estes.
But
Yeah.
it makes sense that,
Oh.
the spirits, they get used to your energy and
They like
Yeah.
your energy.
who knows the little portal that, that can
Mhm.
Yeah.
travel,
Well, I
Yeah.
used to call the energy that woke him up in the nap, I'd say, that's your girlfriend. Be nice while I'm gone. You know? And he'd say, don't say that to me. Don't say it to me. I think it's cool. I'm like,
Yeah.
bring it on.
You have
So,
the
yeah.
best attitude and energy to be a tour guide for the Stanley, I have to
Oh,
say.
thank
Yes.
I
you.
mean, you
Give
had
me
to have
back.
made that so much fun
Right.
Oh,
for
I had a
everyone.
great time.
Right.
Yeah.
I cannot think of one tour where I didn't enjoy it thoroughly, even if it was a hot day, a freezing day, whatever. If people are
Mhm.
willing to play with me, I'll play with them. And I'll make the learning as fun as I can. And if they believe, great. And if they don't, that's okay too. I will hide behind a curtain and pinch them.
There you go.
Whatever it takes. Right, Laura?
Oh yeah. I see
Laura
an
knows.
episode coming up where us 4 go to the Stanley, we meet Mary there,
Yep.
and we have a weekend or longer with just scary. And like, who could say they could do that?
Yeah.
We just
Oh,
have.
that would be
we-
so
I
awesome.
know. Oh yeah.
I do see
I would
that.
love that.
Yep.
I've been dying to
I
go
would
back.
love it. That'd be
Me
fun. I
too.
want to give
Wouldn't
you
it,
all a big
though?
hug and
Yeah. Oh
That would
yeah.
be great.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I would love to hug on y'all and
I gotta
have a good
find that
time.
picture of you and me hugging. I don't know where that.
I know it comes up in my memory sometimes.
Yeah, it comes
and I'm
up in
like,
mine
look how
too.
skinny I
Yeah.
was. And how young I was.
I was skinnier before that. I was starting my way up by the time you and I hugged.
Oh,
What I have an interesting question here.
uh-huh.
Many of the girls have talked about this often, where like where does this energy, we know that there's energy out there that can allow us to see and feel these entities and everything. But what are your feelings about the energy of anybody who's ever been there who is summoning either through seance or through other means or calling on entities? How much of that energy do you think has been created by the people who are visiting there often?
Many, 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 many people have created things that they're not aware of. It could run into problems. I myself, I know that Amy Booney loves Ouija boards, and I don't know how Adam feels, but I myself, I don't care for them. And so when people used to come in bringing Ouija boards, I say, get that out of my hotel. And I have no right to say that. They can do whatever they want. But
Right.
that specific thing, in my opinion, can open doors that you don't know how to close. You don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Okay. And then
Right.
there are people who come seeking loved ones or even a pet that is. I had an experience with 2 ladies that came. They were partners. They were a pair. We were up on the 4th floor, and she said the whole way up, they kept saying that they had a pet that had just died. And they kept thinking about it and thinking about it. And if this is true, is there some way we can know that it's okay? We were just up on the 4th floor. We're going to walk down the hall. And what happens with me is, and this all started there, I get this idea in my head or an impression, not like a physical realization, but like just a knowledge. I'm going to put it that way. And like I can see it in my mind. And I said, okay, who the hell has an iguana? And these ladies went, oh my God. And it was their iguana.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
And and I said, he said to tell you he's fine, but I don't know what else to do.
Wow.
And I've had dogs come through because I love dogs so much. I've had all kinds of strange that when I leave work, I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell Bill this, and they're going to say, I'm not. I don't believe you. Why would they believe me? Doesn't make sense. So
let's talk about that. Did you have that ability before you started working there? Did you have a
not that I'm
sensitivity?
aware of. I might have been empathetic to animals because I grew up on a ranch in Wyoming, and I just had horses, chickens, ducks, rabbits, everything. But not that I was ever aware of.
Was it ever just animals, or was it human beings as well?
Anyone that has an adult or a child on the spectrum, I think, can cue in when you see someone physical that seems as if they have something. And so I was always drawn to the special needs people that would come, obviously, because of my own son.
Yeah.
There was a family that came without their son, unbeknownst to me. And they were my first Bible family because I said, everybody join hands, because I used to like to have the spirit children doing Ring Around the Rosie. And so I'd stand in the middle of a circle of people holding hands, and we would sing Ring Around the Rosie. And I'd say, okay, let go of your hands and just do this. And they would do it, and they could feel something coming down, like a pressure or an energy.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just a fun thing we did. And this family was there, and afterwards they all said, will you say a prayer with us? And I said, sure. And I said, but somebody's missing from this group. Do you have someone's special needs in your family? And they're like, they said yes. And then I received a Bible, my first Bible in the mail from them. Saying, how did you know? And you need to renew your faith in God and your Christian faith. You know what I mean?
Devil
So
woman.
I went to the church department. I said, does anybody want a Bible? I'm collecting them. Right over there. I'll sign
Oh,
it.
there you go.
God is the one that.
Boy one day, and this is so sweet, and I'm sorry to yammer on and on and on, but this little boy was so sweet, you guys. He brought his favorite pillow to spend the night at the Stanley, right?
Aw.
And they're leaving, and he had gone on my tour, and he asked for a postcard so he could write me back, and I gave him a postcard. And then he said, Scary, will you sign my pillowcase?
Oh,
And so I signed his pillow.
sweet.
Yeah. I had really special times there for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds like it.
All of us, Mary, have
Yeah.
experienced things that have kind of opened us up to other things. And
Right.
the interesting thing is, I think, I've known these girls a long time, but I don't know everything about them. But I think that the ghost hunting and the paranormal investigation was kind of a gateway into a lot of other things that started happening to us. So if you saw us shaking our heads when, you're saying, I didn't have this ability before, but all of a sudden I've been able to do this, we've all had that knowing. We've all had those kind of little visions and stuff where these things were not possible for us, honestly, if not for each other, because we've been working with each other for a long time to kind of hone in on what skills we have and to make them stronger. I was laughing when you said, I know nobody's going to believe me, but I guarantee you, all four of us absolutely
do.
believe you because we've all experienced the same
Good.
thing. Yeah.
Well, good.
I
It's
think-
it's so much fun. It's so great to talk to like-minded people, and
Absolutely.
you
Yeah, absolutely.
know, and when I'm around the TV show people, I'm nervous, because they're TV show people. But I enjoyed talking with Amy Bruni. She's really sweet, and I know Adam knows of me, but he doesn't really know me. Grant from Ghost Hunters is super
Yeah.
sweet too.
He was-
But the
he's-
rest of them
Yes.
kind of make me like, no.
Yeah.
I close up more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you're on a TV show. Yeah.
Well, there are a few that don't do the ghost hunting business any kind of justice, and they
Right.
tend to, well, let me ask you this: when you see an investigator come in and antagonize or try to rage bait the entities that are there, what do you do?
I really wasn't in a position to be able to do anything except say, "What the hell are you doing?" You know, I can't
Mm-hmm.
I can't control what other people do, and I don't want to, but I can tell them that now you're gonna I would say typically, "Now we're gonna have to clean up after you."
Right.
You know, we're gonna have to
Right.
come back seriously, have to come back to the area. I would take Madame Vera with me, the psychic, and because if you leave that negative energy in a place, it's just gonna go, it's gonna expand, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I would actually, like, go down there sometimes with my rosary or just, it's okay. And, of course, I don't have sage. I've never had sage in my life, but I'm pretty sure it's been cleaned out by Madame Vera, and my friend Becca used to go clean things with, sage and prayers and like you see on the shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Mm-hmm.
I had no right, to answer your question, to say anything to them except to wanna kick them in the head and
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
say
Yeah.
I
So don't do
it
that.
should have in my opinion, it should be all positive and happy and a
Mhm.
celebration at the
Right.
Stanley, but there are people
Right.
that, because of the shining influence, will come and go, "Where are there's never been a murder at the Stanley." Let me
Right.
clarify that right now. There has been death, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but there's never been a murder, and forget about the shining just for a minute. There's nobody running around with an axe, you know?
No red rum.
It's no red rum, and that makes good money for that. We're thankful for tours and we're thankful for the red rum thing, but that's just not how Flora and Freeland it's not how the hotel should be, in
Right.
my
Mhm.
opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
Yeah.
Was there ever an entity that you thought you felt were of a kinship with? Was there one of your favorites besides, I know you said the children, but was there an adult entity that you thought you could communicate with pretty easily, or that you
That
had
I
more
could contact with or talk
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Um, well, yeah, Lucy. Lucy came forward for the first time. It was snowing outside. I couldn't drive home to Longmont. They said, "Go ahead and stay the night in one of the empty rooms in the winter at the Stanley." So I did, but you get bored. One of my tour guides, Josh, was there, and I said, "Why don't we just go down to the concert hall and see what we can see?" And he had a good idea. He said, "I'm going to bring the broadband radio with me from engineering because it can scan the frequencies,
Right.
Mhm.
The spirit, like a
So
spirit
we went down
box.
yes, and we went down to the, concert hall, nothing happened. Then we went to the lower level, and there's this room off to the left, and that's where the VIPs used to wait for the concerts and things. We went in there, and I said, "Let's turn out the lights and make it creepy." And so he put that on the floor. Nothing happened for a while, and then finally I just said, "Okay, is there anybody here?" Through the radio, we hear, "Lucy, Lucy." And I'm
Wow.
like, "Huh?" And I said, "Okay, say that again. Lucy." I said, "One more time, Lucy." So I said, "Okay, hi, Lucy, how are you?" And she said, "Cold." And I said, "Of course you are, you're dead."
Oh my God.
And then we heard really clear, we heard, "Ha, ha."
That's awesome.
And then I said, "Well, I'm glad you like jokes, but I need to find something out because I'm a little wigged out right now." And Josh, by this time, was like, "Okay, I'm out of here." And I'm like, "No, no, no, let's see,
Yeah.
because this could be a weird trick of some kind." And I said, "Lucy, how old are you? Let's go 0 to 5. No. 5 to 10. No. 10 to 15. Yes." I thought, okay, 10 to 15. Are you 10? She never answered back if she's 15 or 10 or any of those numbers, never answered back. And so I said, "Okay, well, Lucy, we're going to turn the lights on now and go. And if this is true and there really is a Lucy in here, could you come back tomorrow?" And we heard, "Yes." I went back to the hotel, did not sleep well that night. I went back to the tour office in the morning. I was like, "You guys, you guys, you guys, this happened." And they're all like, "Okay, whatever." So they started taking people down there and talking to this Lucy. Now, do I really believe that there's a Lucy. I do because of what happened. But the stories evolved to ridiculous things like she was a runaway from home who froze in the ice house. She was found there. She was a vagrant. Please don't listen to that stuff. It's not true. She just came through on a radio to me.
Yeah.
That's Lucy in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
The other adult would have been Paul. I was lucky enough to chaperone the Ghost Hunters crew one night, and they were down in the basement of concert hall. They went into a room across from Lucy's, and supposedly there was an energy named Paul in there. Paul was an engineer at the Stanley who sadly died of a heart attack. Made it to the hospital in town, but he was at the Stanley working when he came down with a chest pain. He drove to the hospital and died. They went in there, Grant was like, well, Mary's a really nice lady. Now, they had that machine. What is the name of the machine, ladies, where it's certain words are programmed in?
Oh, the Ovilus.
There's like 400
Ovulus.
words.
Yeah, the Ovilus.
Okay, and Mary is not one of those words, right? He said, Mary's a really nice lady, isn't she? And it went, bitch.
Oh.
And you guys should check and see if there's the word bitch in there, but it said bitch. And then I stepped out and I said, I demand an apology. No. And then Grant said, well, who's this you're talking about, just to clarify? And he combined the words of military and marksmanship. And so it sounded like,
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
I haven't been back in that room since because he never apologized to me. Now,
Oh.
some people say that they did research, and that he had an ex-wife named Mary, and that's why he didn't like me, blah, blah, blah. But we can't find anything to document this. There's no documentation of it.
Yeah.
So you have to go on whether you believe me or not,
Mm-hmm.
or you have to ask the ghost hunters. I don't know.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
supposedly
we
Paul
definitely
is an
believe you.
engineer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Huh? You believe me? Good.
Oh, we
Yes.
definitely believe
Yay,
you.
my
yeah.
girl.
We do.
I got my tribe. I got my tribe going.
Casey and I went, we were on the third floor and we did a kind of an EVP session. And what's interesting is the name Paul came through. And we had already
okay.
heard, some things about Paul. We didn't ask for Paul or anything. It was one of those things is like, can you tell us your name? And we got Paul. And somebody, one of our, I keep talking about a friend of mine in California, and he said, oh, I know the story about Paul. And he said, let me ask him something if it's the same one. And he said, Paul, what's your favorite type of music? And it came back. You could hear just country. He said, yep, that's what I heard. I heard that this guy likes country music. And so we played a little bit of country thinking that, it might bring him on more or whatever, but we didn't get anything else. Julie has to leave.
Cool.
She said
Yes.
she had a little baby. Not her, but
No, my
she-
daughter
she did-
did.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
she had a baby today, but
Congratulations.
I thank you. I'm babysitting her other child.
Okay.
So now I got to go put him to bed.
Congratulations.
All right. Bye. See you
Bye,
guys.
Julie.
Bye.
Bye.
I know the answer to this question, but why is the Stanley your favorite place?
Because it's just, I can't explain. It's the Stanley. I love the history. I love the people. Whenever you go there, thought I was ready to leave. Now I know I wasn't really ready to leave because it kind of brings you in. The whole building, the architecture, just the passion. Whenever I'm at the Stanley, even though I don't anymore, I don't actively try and say, come here, Emily or Matthew or Billy, any of the kids. I know that I was loved and cared for when I was there as a tour guide, and I know I was respected. It just became part of my heart, and it's a part of my heart that stays there. And when I told you, Laura, when I die, I've got some plans. And I'm going to go back and tap people on the shoulder and maybe spread a few ashes around the damn place.
I love that.
Well, if we're still here, we're going to tell everybody and anybody, did you ever get tapped? And we'll say, we know who it is. Yeah.
It's
Scary
me.
Mary.
I'll be like, Laura, it's me.
I actually told my husband one time, I said, that's where I'm going to go. That's where I'm going to go because I wouldn't mind hanging out with all those other spirits and just having a good time. But it is a very, very special place.
It is, yeah.
It's one of the only hotels that I can think of where I go to visit the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like every other
don't
place
go to
you go
visit.
to. Right. It's just where you sleep or where you hang out. But
The Stanley has a special energy to it. You go in there and you feel it's a lighter, buzzy kind of energy. I don't know how to explain it. It attracts.
yeah.
I like to just go sit on the couch in the lobby and just watch people. And it's interesting. One day, after my stroke, John said, "Okay, come back, but you're not going to do tours yet. Just want you in the lobby. Just be Scary Mary. Just greet people." And it was crowded. I think there was a wedding going on. And this speaks to the energy of the building itself. Little boy was there. And I think I even have a picture of it somewhere because he freaked me out. He said, who's that man? And he pointed to Mr. Stanley's painting in the lobby where he has his violin. He's looking down at his violin. And I said, that's man that built the hotel all those years ago. And he goes, then why was he just over there? He just walked right past us. And this was a little boy.
Yeah.
Right.
And I said, he did? And he goes, yeah, he doesn't have his violin anymore and it makes him sad.
Oh.
And I was like,
Oh.
well, let's go find the damn violin and give it
Yeah.
back. He was sweet, though. And it was during a wedding. So, like you're saying, Don, that buzzing energy was going on. Like, too many people in the crowded lobby. And bzz, bzz, bzz.
Yeah.
And then mom and dad called him. And he said, okay, bye. But he's sad because he doesn't have his violin anymore.
Oh.
Just like, okay, normal day.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what it does. So, I have 10 years of memories there, ladies, that I could go through with you.
Well, Mary, unfortunately, we got to wind down, but I cannot thank you enough for joining in. The girls were so excited to meet you. I'm so happy to see you again. For the listeners, to be able to call Mary my friend is such an honor and has been a joy. And now my friends, my woo-woo friends, can call you friend too. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
everybody. It's been my pleasure. And Laura, to see you again is a wonderful thing. You know, I just love you to death. Well, that's not good to say right now.
No, that just means I'm guaranteed to haunt the Stanley.
Stanley.
So, yeah.
I appreciate it, everybody. And Tina and Don, you're my new buddies.
Yes.
Can't wait to meet you in person someday. And
Can't wait.
yeah, let's grab some dum-dums and go have fun at the
do it.
Stanley, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you, Mary. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
I can't tell you how great it was to have Scary Mary here with us tonight. She clearly gets us and we get her. And we hope that you learned a little bit more about the Stanley, that is the next place to go on your bucket list. And maybe she will get back. So from the four of us at the 108 Effect, we thank you very much for being here this evening. Until next time. As we close today's conversation, we invite you to take a moment and notice what resonated with you. Maybe it was a thought, a feeling, or a quiet knowing that surfaced as you listened. Whatever it was, trust that it arrived for a reason. The 108 Effect is about remembering that awareness begins within, that clarity doesn't always come from searching outward, but from learning to listen inward. Thank you for sharing this space with us, for your openness and for your willingness to explore the deeper layers of life alongside us. If this episode spoke to you, feel free to subscribe and follow along so that you can continue these conversations with us. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and trust the compass within. This is the 108 Effect.